as show of force, basically. I've got 2 daughters that live in Austin, Texas. So, James is in Fort Hood. And we're most proud of him because he's given us 3 grandkids. So those are fun. I have 2 daughters that live in Austin, Texas. One's married. She called me Father's Day and said, Dad, I found out two days ago, but I wanted to let you know first before anyone else, but we're pregnant. So we're so excited. So she's got one. Had a daughter, just moved to Austin, kind of be close to them. And then I've got another daughter that works here. You see a real pretty tall gal. Her name's Mackenzie. She's my youngest daughter. She's being groomed to take over the family business, 3rd generation. So Harold Waters was Lisa's father. That's how Ken and Lisa Lane come to own Waters Garden Center. I just married in. It's basically what it is. So we've been gardening here, farming here for decades, for 60 years now. So we've learned a few things on how to make things grow, and I want to share some of that with you today. So why don't we start with the number one question I'm getting right now is, I think this is Palm Springs or the desert folks. They're coming up. They've got their summer homes here, and there's this belief that you cannot plant this time of year. This is a great time to plant. It's better to plant now than it is in spring, because in the spring, you've got very cold soil. You've got this prevailing southwest wind that never stops, day and night, all the time. It's crazy. Brand new foliage, and the temperature is just violently swinging from, it's 80, it's now freezing and snowing, and that messes with your plants. So this time of year, the soil's warm. You don't have that prevailing southwest wind. The humidity, you could feel it today. Humidity is way up compared to spring. Spring is like 10% humidity. Now it's probably 40, 50 right now. Plants love that. And so the thing you got to watch right now, you got to have the watering on. So you got to have it more accurate. So you can't just throw it in the ground and expect it to grow. You have to actually take care of it and make it grow. But if you do, it grows very fast. It roots out like instantly. It pushes on new growth. In fact, if you've got landscape in your yard right now, just fertilize it right now. Take the all-purpose, take the 744, take this stuff, put it on those trees that even the natives, that pinyon pine, that oak that's over there, you can make that thing get bigger, lusher, fuller just by fertilizing it right now. Flush another set of growth. Arizona cypress, classic. It's the #1 selling blocking plant. It's a native. It grows right here. If you just fertilize, if you give it any care at all, it will just fill right up. So a lot of things you do with privacy, if you just take care of the landscape you have right now, fertilize it, you can get more growth on those things instantly. And so I'm also telling folks there's a product down there, it's called Humec. If plants got a little stressed because of that, June is hard on plants. June is the hardest month to grow here. Everyone thinks it's January, it's winter. January is not the hardest because they're asleep. They're basically dormant. So it's really hard to make a mistake in January. June, it's harder. It's easier to make a mistake because it's hot, it's dry, it's windy, it's things are brand new growth. That's if you can just get them to limp through June, the rains come in July, the humidity goes up, and the pressure's off. So now, through the end of October is kind of a sweet spot. It's almost like it's another planting season. Not so much for vegetables and things, but for trees and shrubs and blooming things, it's ideal. And so take advantage of it. So we'll get rid of that myth. Up at this elevation, it's a good time to plant. Phoenix or Palm Springs or Tucson, okay, you're living 10 miles from the sun. Not the same. It's hot. Up here, it's not hot. I mean, it's going to be 90 today. That is not hot to a plant. Just make sure it's water. I have planted a few things. One thing I did notice, we've had a little bit of rain. I think we've had 1.5 inches at our house. I've heard more than that in other places. The ground is still kind of dry, I notice. So when I'm planting, we'll go over details on this. It's just kind of one gardener to another. This is things I'm seeing today in my gardens that probably see in yours. The ground is really dry. So when I'm digging that hole, and I'll show you how the size and stuff, but I'm hydrating the surrounding soil before I put a plant in it. So I'm filling that hole up that I've dug, just really trying to hydrate. The mistake newbies make is they'll throw a nice moist plant in the ground. They surround it with all this dry soil, and the soil almost, it just wicks it away from the plant. The plant's left wanting. So if you hydrate the surrounding soil, I almost plant it in this gooey mess. I just set it down in water almost and put the soil around it so that I can hydrate the plant, but mainly the surrounding soil. I think that pressure will be off as we get a little bit more rain. Our wettest month of summer is always August. So I think we've got more moisture to come, but right now it's still pretty like bone dry, even though we've had some moisture. I mean, it's wet down this far, but it's where the roots are, it's still really dry. Okay, so fertilize now, evergreens. Everyone's thinking just evergreen, block with evergreens. But evergreens are slower growing. They take a while to fill in. You plant an evergreen, conifer, pine, spruce, cypress, cedar, junipers. They kind of sit there for a year. They don't do very much. They're doing something, they're rooting, and then it's always the second year out. The following spring, that's when they start to flush new growth. They're always growing underground first, then they're pushing their new growth. So it's kind of slow motion. It's like you're going, what did I do wrong? Nothing. It's just this is just how they operate. Many times I'll sprinkle in some deciduous plants, that is leafy things that drop their foliage in the fall. You wouldn't think that's privacy, but they grow 3 times as fast. They just they instantly fill up. And then you're not outside as much in the winter when they don't have their foliage. I think you can sprinkle an aspen or ash or locust, some of these things in there, and it still gets you that green foliage blocking that you don't, when you're out there enjoying the sunset, it's full-on privacy, but in the winter you're not doing that. You're inside baking cookies. So it's different. I'll show you some of those plants at the end, kind of how to mix and match some of those things. Some that are more popular, some that are native. We'll go over all those things here just shortly. We've got an East Coast philosophy, which is we've got formal landscapes and we have informal landscapes. The East Coast, Midwest folks, they love things lined up in a row, marching across the landscape, perfectly shaped, perfectly perfect. That's a formal landscape. These are English gardens, boxwoods around going up to the front door. Here we tend to have more of an informal landscape, so it's more about an eclectic mix of things. Yes, there's a line of trees that are there, but they're different. They're different shapes, different textures, different color, and it looks like it just magically popped up, even though it was planted yesterday, but it looks like it's been growing there its entire season. Formal would be, I like things shaped, I like things like Dr. Seuss, chunk, 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 ball shapes, spirals. These are all formal gardens. And there's a place for that. I've got a few formal things, but they're in containers in the back patio where I just want to show off. I've got native natural landscapes, and then I have a few elements that are just like, whoa, pieces of art. That's how I use them personally to kind of show things off. So there's different ways to do it. I'm going to promote now is the informal way. Right now we're losing Leland and Cypress. I think we're going to lose every one of them in the county. This is about 20 years ago. It's this beautiful, fast-growing, green, thick plant. Goes up 20 feet tall, 12 feet wide, perfect shape like this, and it fills in fast. It was the #1 seller 20 years ago. We haven't sold that plant for 10 years or more because it has a canker. There's a disease that's starting to get on this plant, and there's no cure. Once it gets on, it just goes right down the line, and it will kill every single one. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is fertilize them, keep them healthy. Fertilize and water, that's the best thing you can do, and you're just buying yourself an extra 5 years. It's going to die. We've known this is going to happen, but that's a monoculture. It's the same plant over and over and over and over again. And if something happens, and we never knew that was a thing until it started happening, then all of a sudden we're going, oh, wow, how do we get out of this one? Replace it with new plants. It's good for business, but it's not good for morale of gardening. It's just terrible. There's nothing if there was a cure, it'd be different. If there was something we could do about it, but there's not. And so I've got neighbors coming down, Ken, you've got to help me. I'm going, there's no help. Sorry, just plant something here so when you do have to cut it down, it doesn't feel so cavernous. So that's the benefit of having several different, at least 2 varieties out there. So if one goes down, you got the others going. I've been consulting for years, the courthouse team down there do an amazing job. But we had committed, to golf course the same way. We committed to elm trees. That's all they had, just elms. And so now we're starting to introduce some different varieties. So if something happens to the elms, we don't lose the entire courthouse. We've got some things that'll carry us. So we go, same with the golf course. It was all planted at the same time, all elms. And every single tree is the same age, same size, same variety. We need to introduce some new varieties. And so we're starting to do that. So that's a good thing. You can do that in your backyard as well. I wrote a book on privacy screens. Everything I'm going to cover today is in this. It's like a 50-page thing. It's digital. It's on our website. I'll send you a link to that. It'll have all the plants we're going to talk about. It'll say how to plant them, how to water them, how to fertilize them, get the most growth. It's got all the things we're going to talk about today. Shoot me your email, and I'll get that to you. I'm going to give you this. I'll start over here, and you just kind of guide it back there, and they'll kind of go around. If you're part of our garden club, it's not going to all 10,000 people. It's only going to you. You're the only ones that are here that want to know about this stuff. So it's for you all, not for the mass, the whole community. So you'll have to give me that again. If you're part of the club, just let me know. This is going to be from my email to yours. It's not going to be through constant contact to everyone out there on the planet. There's 3 things I'm giving to you. The book, Privacy Screens. It's ours. It's not something downloaded from Google. It's actually these our plants for here. How to fertilize, because now's the time to fertilize. And then it's a top 10 plant list. So here are the top. It's not all of them. It's just it's the favored ones. It's the most popular ones. It's all the 5-star ones. You'll have a list of 10. There's 10 of them. And we break it down. It's a top 10 screening shrubs, top 10 plants, and a few other things are in there. I thought that would be helpful. Just going, now which one did, I know there was one of them. Look at the list, it'll be on there, okay? It's just a list, it's Colorado spruce. Doesn't describe it out there more. You can go do some more research on it, but at least you know which one to start researching. So that's what I want to give you today. So if you're a note taker and you miss something, it's okay. It'll be to you this afternoon. If you're not a note taker, it'll just be there for you this afternoon no matter what, okay? So let's just get one formula out of the way. One thing that always people are asking, so we've helped design, I don't know how many gardens. What's my spacing? How many do I need? That's always the question. So if you take a camera phone, you take a quick picture of that, that's perfect. We're going to look at that. We're looking at other things growing in the picture. Companion plants, we know what goes together. When I'm looking at shadowing. Is it north, south, east, west? How much sun is it getting? So I'm trying to figure out some things through that photo to help you figure out what plants are best going down that line or up that wall or highlighting that, whatever. What I can't tell on a phone or a picture, I can't tell the distance. If you can just quickly walk it off, does not have to be exact. Close. Is it 20 feet, 30 feet? Is the whole property line? That helps us figure that out. So we can help you know how many of these things do you need. But the basic formula is take the plant tag, whatever it says widthwise, divide it in 2, and that's your spacing. If you want overlapping pattern up above head high. So that's just really quick. Do you get that? So it's the width of the plant. So this red Tip Photinia. I put my kids through college just selling this one plant. This is all the new growth is red. And then as it matures, it gets green. This is a 12 by 12 beast. So it grows very fast, almost too fast for some spaces. You got to be strategic where you put this. This does not go right against the house, does not go against the driveway. That's a big mistake I see people make. They want it right down the driveway, and then all of a sudden they're trimming it. Oh, thank you. Although I don't know if I can lift this one. Thank you. That's perfect. Yeah. So anyway, this gets 12 feet tall. If you want this thing to grow, overlapping pattern above head height, space it at 6 feet. So one here, one here, one here. Just divide however long that is, and you got a wall of green. This is evergreen. This is a broad-leaf evergreen is how it's really defined. Red-tipped Photinia, because the new growth is red. So we sell a lot of these. I think there's some better choices. I don't put this one in my own gardens. I'm not poo-pooing if you got it, but deer like to eat it. Animals eat it. It gets mildew. It has some disease things. I like selling it to other folks because it's short-lived. So you got to replace it in 10, 15 years. Okay, I got repeat customers, but I don't to my friends. I think there's some better choices I could guide you through that would be easier care and hardier down the road. So yeah.
This one was new to me when we lived here, and I appreciate it because it's evergreen.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. And I noticed people do a lot of things with it. I've seen trees.
Yeah.
How do you do that with the base side?
Oh, so she's got one of these. You folks online, we're not ignoring you. So all those handouts I just mentioned, we're going to embed those in the link. So just take a look. If you could, while you're there, we're a small business. I'm taking on behemoths like Home Depot, Lowe's, and Amazon. It really helps us if you like, comment, or just take a quick, it makes us kind of rank higher, so that would be valuable. So, but look in the link, look in the sidebar, and you've got all those handouts right there. But her question was, red Tip Photinia, it's got a lot going on for it, but people do a lot of different things with it. How do you make a tree or do that kind of stuff? The number one thing folks do is they just top it because it gets too tall, and they'll just kind of, I want to hedge it. If you top this plant, it will get bulkier and fuller down below. To make a tree out of it, kind of a challenge. You just take the strongest branch, cut everything else off. Most folks will start going, oh, it's encroaching on my walkway. It's encroaching on the driveway, and they just start pruning it back and then pruning it up to keep it from getting so wide. So they'll naturally just start taking on forms by themselves. So it's pretty easy. It'll get a major trunk on it at the base. Then as it does that, just pick the strongest one and start training it to be a little bit taller. You can do that with sumacs. There's a lot of things you can do that with. So this one's going to be strongest one here. I don't know. I just grabbed one because I needed one, so I probably wouldn't try to prune this one up. This is kind of the strongest one right here. You're seeing that. It's kind of got the strongest thing. You could probably just start training this stuff up and start taking off like that. So there's an artistry to it a little bit, but be brave. If you make a mistake with this plant, chuck a handful of fertilizer at it. It will grow its way out of any mistake you might have. So a companion to this, just while we're on that, I brought two here. This is Euanomous. Actually, I brought three. I'll show you one native. Just while we're on this broadleaf, these are the broadleaf evergreens that are used for hedging, screening, that kind of thing. This is golden Euanomous. Euanomous, don't ask me to spell it. It's like E-O-U-S-Y-O. Nah, anyway, it's lots and lots of, anyway. Take a look at the tag afterwards. But Euanomous, this is going to get full. It's going to easily 6-8 foot tall by 6 foot wide very, very quickly. If you trim it, hedge it, it gets fuller and thicker and fuller and thicker. So it'll get even more foliage. The more you cut on it, the fuller it gets. Okay, both of these. The only real difference comes in green, silver, gold, and variations thereof. It's blonde or brunette. That's the only real difference. They're the same plant, just the variegation is different some. So they grow the same size, that kind of stuff. There are some varieties that are ground covers. This is a very large family of plants. So some are just stay this tall and they spread like this. They're called winter creepers because they're evergreens. They turn color in the winter, they're real pretty. These happen to be quite large. Okay, so these they don't get mildew like the red Tip Photinia does. So birds really like these, like to roost in them. So if you want to attract more birds, they're great. The native one that looks like this, in fact, I'll put this back up here. There's one that I use myself. This is called Ellie Agnes. It's kind of similar. This is the native. This is the East Coast version of our native. This actually grows wild throughout the Bradshaws, Mingus. Not like this. The native one looks just like this. It looks blue. And then as this matures, it'll get this variegation to it like this. So we figured out we've bred new varieties so we can get some more color to it. There's a lot of Arizona blue naturally showing up, which is this color green with blue highlights. To have something gold like this is quite striking. Evergreen, I'll get this up to size. I kind of care for it, get it up to size, about head height, get it nice and full, and then I cut it off of all care. I don't water it. I don't fertilize it. It just sits there and looks great because it is truly, truly a native plant that grows wild up here. So this one can adapt really well. A little bit slower growing than this one, but I gave up the growth for just longevity and just ease of care. You don't have to be dependent on the drip system for this guy. So this is Ellie Agnes. So gilded edge Ellie Agnes. Yeah. Deer don't eat this. Rabbits, antelope. Doesn't get any bugs. This is a great plant for here. Ellie Agnes. So there's a cotoneaster that does this. So there's a couple of them. There's a gray leaf cotoneaster, grows wild. It's native. You'll see it out when you're hiking around. Gets about this tall, kind of gray. It's got a real tiny leaf to it, fragrant flower. There's a bigger cousin to that called red clusterberry cotoneaster, or cotton Easter is how you say that. And this will be on the list for you, so you'll have this. It gets quite large. It gets red Tip Photinia large. It gets 10 by 10. And it's red clusterberry. It gets on these white flowers that turn into these clusters of red berries that are quite striking. They're very pretty in the fall and winter. But animals don't eat that. Doesn't get mildew, doesn't get any bugs. It's kind of a bulletproof. Again, it's a local native or a cousin of a native that grows wild here. Those are two really good choices. For natives, I'd probably go Ellie Agnes and cotoneaster for native stuff. But a lot of folks are in from other areas and they want to have what they had back there. You can grow that here too, but you're probably dependent on a drip system. Now these guys, you probably water this once a week. That would be more than enough. Treat it like a tree or something hardy, but put on a drip system because it won't go by itself through the heat of June. June is when you're going to damage. You'll get brown tips, that kind of stuff. But it'll take our cold. It'll go down to minus, I think this is minus 20 degrees, something like that. It goes really cold. It's the zone, the hardiness zone is good for us. It's that dryness that gets to it. So you need to, it'll be a little more dependent on you, but if you want something with a glossier leaf, this is a great plant. There's lots of them in your neighborhood, just like this one. A native one, what a lot of folks don't think about are vines. Now the lots are getting smaller and smaller for some of the homes here. So they're a little bit tighter. And then they've got this block wall and stuff. And it's like 5 foot, 6 foot. I mean, you could look over the fence and see your neighbors doing whatever. If you just had a little bit more, it'd be ideal. Vines are perfect for that. Absolutely perfect. And so I brought a couple of them. That's one that's super aggressive. I mean, dogs and small children have been lost in this plant. This is fast growing. If you stand next to this very long, it will grow onto you. This is 5-leaf akebia. It's evergreen, takes full sun, full shade. I have personal experience with elk. Elk don't eat it, deer don't eat it. Animals aren't going to bother it. But akebia is a really strong grower for here. It's not going to go by itself. I tend to water it like a tree about once a week is more than enough water for this, a deep soak. But it's a really fast, but it can be too aggressive for some spots. I would not put this, if you had a gazebo or a pergola, perfect. You want to go up 10 feet and over the whole thing, down the other side, this is a great plant. If it's going to be on a little trellis right next to your front door, there might be some better choices than this one because it's going to be a maintenance nightmare. But fast growth, this will easily grow up. This one doesn't self-cling, so you're going to have it climb up something. A trellis, cables, I've seen rebar just work together, wired together to go up a wall. It's going to climb up and it'll spill an extra, probably realistically 2-3 feet above that wall. And what I'll do with vine is in the late winter, very early spring, just before it's about to push its new growth, I will shave it right back as close as I can to that wall, to that trellis, whatever it's growing on. I'll just shave it right back, fertilize it, and so it gets it under control. Then I get all this brand new growth coming out of it. So it looks luxurious, looks vibrant, young again. So vines really like that. It's kind of all my vines. Honeysuckle. If you don't cut it back and kind of give it a reset, it tends to be woody and overgrown sometimes. It gets kind of this old, mangy look. But if you just cut it back close to the fence or close to that wall that you're growing it on, and then fertilize it, Again, I'll usually do it right before it flushes growth. So if you do this in the fall, it's going to look butchered through all of winter. But if you just wait, get through winter, let it hold its color, hold its foliage, look good, then shave it back and fertilize it, looks best. I find that for most of your hedges. I'm going to leave my red Tip Photinia, the Euanomous, silverberries. I will wait and get it through winter. They kind of are starting to need a little haircut right now, so my Ellie Agnes has put on like this much growth. And so I'll probably go through and give it a light cut, just to keep it sort of under control. But in March, I'll give it a heavy haircut. I'll get it right back to where I want it to be, back down here. And that's where I'll fertilize it. It covers any mistake I make, it flushes right back out, and it looks good. So most folks, they prune too early. They prune in like December and January, and then you see all the wood cuts. You see all the cuts for like 2-3 months. I'd rather see the foliage, overgrown foliage than. So this is a fast. This is a beast. This is the native one. This grows wild throughout the mountains here. Typically, you see this growing underneath the junipers, underneath the oaks. This is Virginia creeper. Usually it's going to be green. The native one is green, has 5 leaves to it. This is what the native one looks like. So it just says set green. Just we bred this one to have more color to it. So it'll take shade, it'll take sun, whatever you give it, it'll take. It's truly a native. Its claim to fame is in the fall. It turns this very bright red, like fire engine red, very bright red. It is deciduous, that is, it will lose its leaves in the winter, but it'll self-cling onto a wall, attach, go up to the top, and then spill over the sides. So it's a good strong, if you want something to just get it up to size and then never care for it, this is your ticket. So Virginia creeper. This is called Starry Night, I think. No, Star Showers. I knew it had star in it. Star Shower, just the new variety and you'll only find this variety at Waters Garden Center. Don't forget, like, comment. It helps us out a lot. Actually, we'd rather just see you here. It'd be better. Okay. This is another broadleaf, and then we'll go to the actual trees, probably the reason you came anyway. This is a privet. Very popular, just green plant. Gets up pretty much like this, solid. I mean, like this, meaning like all the way around, 6 by 6 by 6, or 8 by 8 by 8. It's a big plant. Very fragrant white flowers. It's got a more fragrant flower than all the other ones kind of combined. Ellie Agnes is pretty close. It has a real fragrant, sweet, small flower. You don't see it, but you sure smell it. It's real sweet, like a gardenia smell to it. This is a good, strong plant. Okay, let's go to the big boys. And the number one seller is Arizona Cypress. I set up some things that are too big to kind of, could you just track me over here, kind of get me going? So a couple of them here. So number one seller by far, this is Arizona Cypress. And the way you can tell, it looks like a juniper. The only way I can really tell is Arizona Cypress puts on a pine cone instead of a berry. And so the junipers will put on an actual berry. And I think junipers get a bad rap. I've got allergies. Well, if you had allergies to junipers, you're in the wrong county. You're in the wrong state. You ain't getting away from this. If you ever seen a juniper explode with pollen, I mean, he wants to pollinate the entire mountainside. He's not happy with the girl next door. He's going, I'm going all in. And there's this cloud. It almost looks like it's on fire. It's crazy. And so that's junipers. And it's the male junipers that are causing this. Females don't have pollen. So for us, when you're buying a juniper from us, guess which ones we don't grow? We're not growing the males. They're uglier. They get kind of off color. The females are voluptuous. They're beautiful, thicker color. They're more glorious. They're just pretty. So we just have the females. Now they'll put on little berries on them, but you don't have the pollen issues. But boy, junipers grow native. They're wild here. But if that's a concern, grow this one. This is a 20-foot tree by 12 foot wide. Solid. Now, most of your evergreens, they don't fill out in buckets very well. So they get tall, but they don't get full. This is literally going to be 12 feet wide and thick. You're not going to get through, you can't see through it. I mean, it's just like it's solid. And so it cuts the wind. We'll use this frequently out in the Paulden, Chino Valley, the valley areas where we have a lot of wind and dust. They're trying to control the wind and dust. We'll plant some of these up against the fence line. These are bigger properties typically. And so it's a great choice. Again, 12 foot wide. So if you want to space this, how many do I need? Probably every 8 feet or so is about, that'll get your overlapping pattern pretty tall. For these, usually I'll try to encourage a little bit broader spacing and plant something different in below. And I'll show you that in a second, some ideas on how to design a landscape wall or screen that'll kind of look more natural. This is number one seller. This one I brought, I'll get to this second. So let's go down here. You track it, come this way. So we got a couple things here. This is Colorado spruce. This grows wild, so Spruce Mountain is right here, just outside of town. That's what's growing up there. This and white fir. There's two types of conifers growing up on that hill. This gets up easily 50 feet tall. I'm not sure in our lifetime. It's kind of slow grower, maybe a couple feet a year is realistic for that. And then it has this perfect Christmas tree kind of shape. So it just has this beautiful blue to it. Kind of an interesting kind of factoid plant. This is plant interest because they got gardeners here. So we don't start these by seed. Otherwise, you get these different varieties coming out, different colors. You get greens and blues, and yellows. You get all kinds of colors. We're trying to be very exact on what we want each one to be cookie cutter. So literally, our trees are clones of each other. They're exact copies. We'll take a Colorado spruce root, and then we'll graft. We'll take the prettiest tree. We'll take a cutting from that, graft it on there. So then when it grows, it's an exact copy of its mother plant. So we get these very interesting colors. You see this a little bit bluer than other maybe native Colorado spruce because we've done that. That's a grafted tree. It's kind of preferred, kind of unusual. You're getting to the artistry of, or the quality of plants. We just want to bring out the color. You're getting that silver color. Another interesting fact is the new growth has a color. The older growth is more green. And so that's actually a secretion. You can actually rub the blue off. And so as your plants grow, and it's aluminum that will bring that color out. If you start to grow and it's going, oh, it's not as pretty as I remember 3 years ago. What's going on? Something's happening. Just give it a little bit of aluminum sulfate. It's a granular kind of fertilizer. Underneath that, it'll pick the aluminum up and it'll push it right onto the color will come right back. So there's ways to trick the plant into becoming richer, fuller, thicker, and it's usually minerals and fertilizers, what you're doing with that. So some things that don't pertain to the class, but just we're into big boys, and it's fun to learn a little bit more than maybe you knew before. The one next to that, this is Oregon green or Austrian pine. Austrian is related to ponderosa pine. They're cousins of each other. A lot of folks are coming going, I want to block some things out. I want a ponderosa pine. Where are they? Ponderosa pine, we do have them. I wouldn't have them in front of the camera because they're too ugly. They aren't pretty plants. And really what you're planting in the yard is a trunk. The growth is up there. If you want a trunk right here in the yard, that's plant a ponderosa pine. If you want a pine tree that holds its foliage and looks good, you plant Austrian pine. Still a long needle pine, but it holds its foliage right down to the ground. It doesn't limb itself up like a ponderosa does. So it's kind of we sell far more Austrian pines because it's a landscape feature, not just a plant, but it naturalizes really well because pine trees do exceptionally well here. Again, this is going to grow a couple feet a year, pretty realistic. The first year it might only grow 12 inches, but if it's happy and it starts to root out, it's going to elongate more. And so it has a classic trunk, straight. It's got a central leader, branches coming off of that, and then it's just always growing to the moon. This will get up to easily 40 feet, something like that, by about 15 feet wide, something like that. So it's a good choice. The one next to that, I don't know if is that picking up on camera okay? This is probably the fastest growing of all the conifers. That's Theodore Cedar. It's too big for most of us. I wouldn't introduce it into my own house. I mean, if you put that in your front yard, your house will be obliterated within, I don't know, 5 years. No one's going to see anything behind this tree. It's 80 feet tall by 25, 30 feet wide. So it's usually misplaced in the yard. I've got a neighbor that put one right down his driveway. It looked really good for the first few years. Now he's limiting it out because it's just way too high. He's just trying to get where he can get his truck underneath the thing. So it's too big for small lots. I think you need a little bit further out in that corner back over here. It's perfect for that. If you're looking across the valley and your neighbor's barn is right there, put one of these right there. It's going to block it out pretty short order if you don't want to see that. So, but Theodore Cedar, kind of an unusual plant, but it thinks it's at home here. You'll see some magnificent specimens, just beautiful. And they're always the biggest evergreen out there in the landscape. I mean, commercial landscapes. They take the wind, they take our cold. They're just a good plant for here. Just be careful. Don't put it someplace where you're going to be cutting on it all the time. So that's the choices there. I had something else in mind before it left me. Let's go to here. This is one I use myself. This is, I use Spartan junipers. I like junipers just because they're so easy to grow. Once they get established, you can go on a trip, the irrigation fails, you come back, it's still alive and looking great, whereas other things will suffer. It's just a native. They do really well here. So for me, my yard's a ½ acre, and it looks like someone that owns a garden center might live there. I mean, it's pretty nice. The backyard is also exclusive, it's fenced for the dogs, kind of keeps them out, keeps the javelina out. Those are my nemesis. It's got lots of color. It's a bird sanctuary back there. Literally, it is so noisy. There's so many birds, it's almost obnoxious. There's water, there's waterfalls. It's pretty. The front yard is more of a courtyard. This is the front door. And so when the kids went off to college, I got rid of the lawn. I'm not playing soccer anymore. Got rid of that dog and then put down patios. And so now we've got walls and fountains and just more. And I'm sitting out there more and more because in the morning, this is the place to be. It's the best of the gardens. Well, what's one thing you have in your front yard that you don't want to see while you have your skivvies on reading the Wall Street Journal? Neighbors. I don't want to see neighbors walking by going, hey, Ken, they're going out. Do I look okay? What's going on here? So there I've got raised beds. I've got 3 of them. And I just planted, again, we're on a slope. It's overlooking the dells, beautiful vistas, but it's a difficult landscape because it's so steep. So we just put raised beds in. And so I just zigzagged in a triangular pattern, junipers up and down this thing. Took about 3 years, and now the neighbors you can see me by the mailbox. If you want to say hi, walk on in. I'll be glad to get you coffee. But just while you're sitting there wanting some alone time, that was my solution for that in the long term. It really helped out. It feels like this private courtyard. It's just all mine with hummingbirds sipping from the fountains. It just looks good. So you can use junipers that way or any of these guys. I didn't want something massive out there because it's your front yard is typically, my front yard at least, is smaller than my backyard. And so if I planted some Theodore cedars or Arizona cypress, it would quickly get it'd feel like a jungle. It wouldn't have the right feeling to it. So I purposely chose a little bit smaller plant. I chose Spartan junipers because I have a lot of native blues. I have a lot of oaks and pinyon pines, that kind of stuff. I wanted to introduce green. Green also has it's got a feel to it. It just is different than blues have kind of a drier, more Arizona feel. I wanted this to feel like it was green and lush, like I'm in Ireland or something, only it's junipers. And so I went with Spartans. And so they get up about 10 foot tall. Maybe they're this wide or so right now. And then I put them in a triangular space. Let's show you that little trick real quick that'll really help you out. Let me do it. Let's see, how am I going to do this? So here, before I move on, juniper, there's tons of them. Junipers do great here. This is Wichita blue. These are exactly the same size, 10 foot tall, about 6 foot wide, just green or blue. Pick your color. They're all females. They're not going to put on pollen for you. They're not going to be in allergy issues. And they just naturalize. They take our dry, cold, they take all the stuff that we give them, throw at them. This is actually a difficult growing climate. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's dry and windy, and it's a challenge. Other parts of the country, I don't think you truly have to be a gardener. I think you just have an interest in gardening and have success. Here, you've got to get the fudge factor it's tighter. You don't have as much fudge factor. You got to be more on track. You don't have to be perfect, but you can't take shortcuts. You got to be more accurate. And so if you do that, it's like an oasis. It just feels like, wow, look at what they did. I don't know if I could do that. Well, you can. Just knock on their door and ask them. And the gardener loves sharing their knowledge. It's a social thing that we do. And so Ken, I'll drag them over here just so you don't have to come back and forth. So I might be off camera for just a second. So I get these two. There we go. Just this one. Of course, I have a team that shows up at dawn just to water. So everything's at maximum weight. They're just fully, weigh a ton. So with these, and I'll tighten them up a little bit just so you get. I'm trying to get a design idea for you, just so you know how to put these things together. Here, I'll put this thing in just because it's lightweight. So most folks are two-dimensional. They're designing in rows, and that's what your grandparents did. That's a thing. But I think it looks more natural if you got to put the row up because we're limited on our space. So we only have so much property, most of us. So yeah, you put it in a row. There might be a wild oak. Could we have a pinyon pine, a ponderosa? There could be some native stuff. I'm big into using what's already there. The scrub oaks are great. You can't kill them. They're almost a weed. The ceanothus, there's a wild, kind of looks like a cotoneasis. It's a broadleaf evergreen that gets up about head high. I love those. They're pretty. They're easy to grow. I trim them back a little bit. I don't water them, but I might fertilize them some to bring the color out. But I'll use those as natural elements. And then I'll plant around that to get my screen or my island or my design that I'm trying to pull off. I'm trying to incorporate the native things into my own landscape so it looks more natural. So that's what I'm doing here. Arizona cypress, a juniper. But in between, think in terms of, think triangular patterns. It'll really up your game. I brought it here. I'd actually put that one in here. But I brought a couple things like this and this. These are things I might plant up front to show off in front of all the green. This is a deciduous thing. I'll tell you what that is in a second. Here's another native that just looks good right now. Oh my gosh. So maybe it doesn't quite show up on camera. Sorry, folks, but space this stuff out. So 2 lessons I want to give you here from design elements. I like using deciduous things in with my evergreens because it just softens it up just like that. And they grow so much faster than your evergreens do. They'll put on twice the growth. So you can take a smaller couple of these, you make your landscape dollars go farther just by putting a few of these things in. Aspens, this is going to grow 3-4 feet a year. It's going to outpace all this stuff and be instantaneously this beautiful, lush, white-barked plant. And no, it's not typically, it's going to be deciduous, it's going to lose its leaves, but it puts on a bunch, it's a cluster. Still, what you're trying to do is not block. We're trying to bring the eye forward so it's focused on the garden and not the barn behind you or the the neighbor's debris pile. You don't want to focus on that. Focus on this. It's so pretty here. So you're trying to trick the eye to bring it towards the beauty. And so aspens are classic for that. There's Aspen Creek is right here. So they grow wild. They do really well in all of our towns. Chino Valley, Dewey, Humboldt. They grow in Chino Valley, Paulden, Skull Valley. They grow everywhere. They might need some water at the lower elevations, but they'll grow really, really well and really fast. But here I would take my normal pattern. I try to take something in between. So here I got this is a desert willow. These are growing wild everywhere, up and down the highways. This is the one that's growing. You'll see this flower blooming right now. Hummingbirds love this plant. It's one of their favorite foods. So it's just bulletproof. Some of the newer varieties that we're introducing here, we've bred the seed pod out of it. So the native one puts on a seed pod. It's pretty, kind of makes a noise in the wind. If you pick those seeds off, it'll rebloom for you. Well, if you're planting this for a blooming tree, just get one that doesn't put seed on, and it just reblooms by itself. There's several that we're introducing that are like that. So that's what this one is. This is starting to bloom. You'll start to see this. Mine just started blooming, I think this week. This is Chaste Tree. It looks innocent, but this is going to easily go up to 12 feet tall. Beautiful vase shape like this, covered in blue flowers. It's a drought-hardy, tough plant. And I've noticed butterflies and hummingbirds both love this plant. So the monarchs and the swallowtails are going to be all over this tree. But you could easily introduce this in between just to, while these are filling in over the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, this instantly gives your eye something beautiful to look at, gives you an extra dimension or layering. This is kind of like a birthday cake. Think of it that way. Think of landscapes as landscaping is like a birthday cake. I haven't quite used that one before. Maybe it doesn't quite land well, but anyway, you're doing layers. It really helps you out with that. So the other one that I've used, and this is getting way out there now, again, I own a garden center, so plants, I don't think of them as puppy dogs. I'm not planting puppy dogs. To cut down a tree does not bother me one bit. There are things to be enjoyed for now, and later, as soon as you get mangy in my yard, there is going to be a problem with you, and it's going to be out of here. And so frequently, if I want shade really fast, if I want screening really fast, and I don't want this Theodore Cedar in front of my windows so I don't have to look at you, what I'll do is I'll plant this where it needs to be out there, maybe 20, 30 feet away, where it can grow and be full, but it's going to be a while before it's full enough. And so I'll purposely plant a sacrifice real close that grows like really fast. Aspens, cottonwoods, willows. These are fast-growing, short-lived trees, but I'll purposely plant this right now so I get privacy for the next 5 years. I got it. And now this thing is growing up. Eventually it'll be big enough. As soon as it's big enough, I'm purposely going to cut this thing down. It seems like sacrilege to some gardeners, but it's just a tree. It's just a willow. So I'll cut it down and sacrifice it. So I get my screening right now, and then I get my privacy for the entire time. So you can do, this is not forever. This is like you can be just for a while and then move the landscape. You can actually transplant it, but these things grow so fast, it's hard to transplant a cottonwood that's gone from this to in 5 years. You just can't transplant those things. So, but a chainsaw, I love powering up my chainsaw. Man, to hear a big tree drop, it's like a power rush. Anyway.
I have a question about roots. Like,
Yep.
did you call this a
Chaste tree, yep. Yep. Roots, what about roots? So, if you're on septic, don't put plants that grow fast and they're big over your septic field. You will have problems. They're going to crawl in there and clog everything up. Don't put it over the septic tank. Don't put it near the water line. Roots have a way of finding, wrapping, squeezing, and just finding their way in. So just know where your water lines are. Keep them off. None of these that we've pushed right here, except for maybe the Theodore Cedar, and even that's not that bad. I'd probably keep that one away from my walkways. It's really about lifting more than it is about water lines and that kind of stuff. So I'd say watch, don't put the really big things right next to my driveway, because then they can eventually get so big they'll start to lift things. They're mischievous that way. If you got pavers, it's not a big deal. You lift the pavers, cut the root, put it back down, you're good. But if you've got poured concrete, that's where you're going to get into issues sometimes. Most of these are not that aggressive. So it's your sycamores, so really fast growers that really cause issues. Sycamores, cottonwoods, willows. What are some others? There's not many that are notorious for that, but those are some elms can do that. These are really big trees. These are 50-foot trees that have roots that go everywhere. These guys are more contained. So if that's really a concern, know where your water line and septic fields are, where your sewer lines are. You can blue stake that, they'll tell you. And then ask us. hey, is this one, we know which ones are causing grief because customers are coming in going, this plant clogged my septic field. What do I do? I said, well, move it or cut it down. You need something different because this is going to keep coming after you. The Roto-Rooter guy is going to be out there every year. So anyway, we've got so much experience. So we're talking to the community all the time. So we just have a feel by neighbor. We know the neighborhoods, how they're doing. Because we're not just dealing with your house. We get you and half your neighbors are coming in asking questions about things. So that deer population, not just hitting your yard, they're hitting the entire neighborhood as they go down the neighborhood. So we try to help you out that way. Oh, we're 1 hour. We're 56 minutes in. Perfect. Time for questions. How are we doing?
Yeah,
Yep.
we have some of the red Photinia.
Yep.
Every spring we have liquid fertilizer injection done.
Yep.
Water. So we're seeing leaf curl.
Yeah.
There's something that can be done about that.
So he's got red Tip Photinia, and he's getting leaf curl every spring. Just a thing that's coming on. You probably have thrip. It's a bug, most likely. It could be a disease thing. There are some things to get on. Again, red Tip Photinia, if there's 10 things in the neighborhood that it can get, it'll probably find a way to get 12. It just says they have issues. But if you know what to look for, that's a secret, you know what to do. So in the spring, when that tender new growth comes out, there's a little tiny bug. It's called thrip, H-R-I-P, or no-see-ums. Sometimes they'll bite you and leave a little red mark. Those are called no-see-ums or thrip. They'll get on the leaf and start to scrape. They got a scarifying mouth part to kind of scrape the foliage off, the tissue. Then it starts to curl. I'm guessing, without seeing it, I'm guessing that's what it is. There's a spray, there's a drench down there called, I think, tree and shrub drench. It's a pretty basic name. If you could give that to those plants just as growing, you wouldn't have it. It would get rid of the thrip. So, and one application is good for a year. So it's something, if you know you're getting this every year, just put a drench at the base. It's a bug killer, and it'll take that out, and so the new growth will come out clean. And the good thing is, the one that we have, it'll travel with the new growth. So some of the drenches stay in just the old tissue, and the new growth comes out and doesn't affect. This one travels with the new growth. So it's just a little bit better. Again, you're shopping here at Waters. You're shopping here for better, not for cheaper. You want better. You want something that works. That's the reason we carry that one. That's probably right before it. We're talking March. Just when you feel like spring's here, but it's not quite here, there's a snowstorm coming, do it then, and then it'll take that up as the new growth hits. Does that make sense? Thrip, kind of research it, see if you can see it online to tell. Anyone else? If not, I'll show off a couple plants that are not related, but are really cool, that are kind of tickle my fancy that you might tickle yours. Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned fertilizers.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at knowing how much fertilizer to use.
Yeah. Oh, you went on too strong. So her thing's online. We're over here. You'll have to fertilize more often here. There is no food in your soil. There's nothing good in your soil. So the plants are more dependent on you if you want rich, lush plants. So you'll fertilize more often than other parts of the country. So we're really saying you should be fertilizing 4 times a year. And if you're thinking holidays, think Easter, that's spring. Think the 4th of July, mainly because the monsoon rains are starting to come right then. If you can get it on then, the rains will help you out a lot, help you recover from that June hard month. Halloween is the most important feeding of the entire year, bar none. You're fertilizing then. The aspens are turning color, the mums are in bloom. It's fall right then. You're starting to feel like there could be a frost coming. That's a good time to fertilize. It's taking that food, it's going to use all that food to form next spring's flower and leaf buds. That's why it's so important, especially for evergreens, your conifers. And then winter, I think we need to fertilize evergreens. There's a thing that happens, it's called winter chlorosis, where the evergreens turn this off color. They get this yellowing to them. It's winter chlorosis. It's shorter days, and the pH is kind of high, and they just turn yellow on you. If you fertilize at the new year, they stay rich green, and they'll actually push more growth as the spring season hits. So that's the time to fertilize. What to fertilize with? Stay away from chemical fertilizers, especially at this altitude. With the way our rain pattern comes, this is Scott's all the granular chemical-based, petroleum-based products, anything sold at Costco. That's going to be chemicals. They release faster, and that's why you burn. So you got a little bit too much on, which is okay. But again, you got to be more exact here, or things can happen. And so those chemical fertilizers, they release with just 1 or 2 water events, and boom, it's all available. And in 30 days, it's gone. You're better off using the granular organic foods. This is cottonseed meal, bird guano, iron and sulfur. It's got all the stuff you want. It's made for here. We make this. This is my recipe for here. And it's organic, so if you get too much, you've got some fudge factor. So it's much less likely to burn. And so I did have one customer last year, gave me grief. Man, he went off on me. He heard me say, take this home, pour the whole thing in the hole, and plant the plant inside the fertilizer. And it just vaporized the plant, just absolutely destroyed it. Gave him a new one, but still, he just heard what people hear. Sometimes I'm just amazed, but he just used it wrong. This is made, when you fertilize it looks salt and peppered. So a bigger bag will cover about 2,000 square feet. So it's quite a bit. So I think I use 3 bags in my yard to fertilize things. And I'll do it several times a year. So that'll kind of help you a lot. Stay away, for the love of gardening. Get rid of the Miracle-Gro. It does not do what it says. It's not going to grow tomatoes the size of your head. It's a salt-based fertilizer. It interacts with the water that is so hard here already, and it does more damage than good. You do not need a liquid-based fertilizer. You want granular foods for your bigger plants, things that we're talking about here for longer term. This will release over the next 3 months. Whereas a chemical base, Scott's, whatever, is going to release in 30 days is generous. Many of them will release so fast during a rain event. We get so much rain, it all just picks up, liquefies, and goes downstream. It doesn't even get in the ground. It's going down your neighbor's benefit, not more than you do. So there's a benefit to granular, but I think that will help you a lot. And again, I'm going to send you the how to fertilize. It'll in one pamphlet, that whole thing I just spent 2 minutes on, it'll tell you the whole thing. The one that can really help you right now is that humic. It's a granular humic acid. If things were stressed, if you have brand new plants, if you need more roots, that's in addition to your fertilizer. It's actually feeding the soil and the mycorrhizals, the worms, the things that are growing inside the soil. It's feeding those. So the plants go, whoa, the soil's really alive. There's a symbiotic thing that happens in the soil. Plants know. And so the things start growing faster in the soil, and they go, whoa, I should send out more roots. It's pretty nice here. So they actually will encourage root growth. That'll help you get past the damage. A lot of times in June, there's 2 mistakes we make big time in June. The plant is relying on that drip system, which only has 1 or 2 emitters, and the plant's grown, and so it's not quite getting watered enough anymore because it's grown, and so it gets dry. So you get this crusty foliage coming up that's underwatering. The other one, we see a little bit of damage, and we overcorrect, and then we overwater. Now we're watering by hand every day, and the same thing happens. Now the soil's too wet. The roots will actually rot off, so you still end up with smaller roots. You get the same exact symptoms of browning tips, leaf damage. Add that humic, and that'll really help you get more roots to recover from that. The plants want to live. Just have to give them a reason, and they'll take off. Okay, that's actually a really good question. Yeah, online?
Hey, Sharon had a question. She got a little concerned when we were talking about 4th of July.
Yeah?
She wants to know if she missed 4th of July, is it too late to fertilize now?
Yeah, Sharon, that's a really good question. No, I think you're just fine. It's better to be late than not at all. Yeah, so I put mine on the end of June. That's me. My name's Ken. We're just friends. We're talking over the back fence. This when I did it because I knew the rains were coming. And so I wanted to take advantage of that. But we're not done. The wettest month is August. So put it on there, and you still got plenty of runway to go. The growing season is still in full swing. Take advantage of it. But again, the most important fertilizing is Halloween. That's late October, November timeframe. It's using that food. Plants store up food like a bear or squirrels hibernating. They'll store that up, and then they're going to use that next spring to flush that new for fruit trees, for things that bloom in spring, lilacs, forsythia, super important. I can't emphasize that one enough. Or if you just want a more mature landscape, you just need it bigger. It's too young yet. I want it to be full. I want it full now. Fertilize in the fall. Yeah.
So the 4 times a year, is that just for evergreens or
All things. So her question, I know you can't hear her. She's going, what's going on? You should come in and visit us. We love seeing you in here. Anyway, she was saying the 4 times a year, is that just evergreens or is that everything? I fertilize everything. I'm a flower guy. I fertilize all the flowers, trees and shrubs. Trees and shrubs definitely are bigger feeders than other things. And anything that blooms. So right now it's my butterfly bush. I have a repeat blooming lilac. It just went into bloom a second time. It'll go again this fall. But it'll only bloom again if you fertilize it, if it has enough food. Because to form that flower, it takes tremendous energy to do that. It doesn't do it by itself. It needs help. Yeah.
And then I moved up here from Phoenix. And
Okay.
I have a bag of all-purpose food that I got from one of the garden centers
Yeah.
down there. Will that work up here?
Use it up here. It's probably a 10-10-10, pretty common. It's probably a chemical. I'm trying to switch all my customers over to organics just because we're all drinking groundwater. Whether you have a well in your backyard, which some of us do, or you've got it from the city tap, it's well water. They stuck a straw in the ground, they're sucking it out, and I have the ability to pollute us all. If I sell 3 truckloads of fertilizer in the marketplace and you all spread it out there, it's all chemicalized, and it liquefies and gets picked up by the rain and goes down to the whatever, recycle. That stuff goes into our drinking water. If you're on your own well, don't use chemical fertilizers. Don't do it. It's just not worth the risk. Use organics. They release slower over a longer period of time, and the plants pick up all of that food. Whereas a chemical, half of it's wasted just as it goes through the root zone, or just it releases so fast the plant can't pick it up. Use it up. Don't throw it in the trash, but then switch over to something better you got from Waters Garden Center.
Yeah, well, this is something that they make up
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, I used to sell it. I know what it is. Use it up. There's better things up here. Welcome to God's country, by the way. It's better up here. Anyone else? Yeah.
What if you're just planting new plants?
Yeah.
Fertilize then when you're planting?
You do, yeah. So if you're planting new plants, just real quick, and then this will be the last question. How about that? So this is how you plant. And this will be in the booklet. But if you buy plants, you get this handout. But this is basically what it is. Let's get something small. Here, I wanted to show this one off. This is a native grass. This is blue Grama grass. This is a blonde ambition Grama grass. Now our native Grama grass has a seed head just like this, but it grows like this. We bred one that now it floats sideways. It's pretty cool. If you're a gardener, kind of going, I've never seen that before. That's so neat. But it just floats in the wind. It has the seed head just different. A true native grows wild. Get it started and it'll grow by itself. But if I were planting this, or this was a tree, or this was a vine, whatever it is, the hole that you're digging is the same depth as the bucket. Roots go sideways here. They do not go down. They go this way because they're trying to pick up water and food because there's nothing down there for them except caliche, boulders. There's just nothing down there for them. And so they're going sideways. So dig a hole that's this round, kind of like this, saucer shaped. That dirt that you have there, screen it. So anything bigger than a golf ball, chunks of rock and old roots, you'll see debris. The contractor buried stuff in the ground. You'll see all kinds of stuff. I've seen bricks buried there. Dig all that stuff out. Anything bigger than a golf ball, it heats up in summer, and the water molecules can't stick on it. It just doesn't help your plant at all. Screen it out. Some of you aren't going to have much soil left. If you have a boulder, roll it out, get it out of there. Now maybe you need some topsoil to help backfill. But most of us have enough soil left over. There you're going to add some organic matter, some mulch, compost. So you folks in the Midwest, mulch is defined as bark. We're not talking bark. We're talking rich, organic, coffee-colored wood products. So we make our own called premium mulch. Add about 25% mulch to that soil. So about 1 shovel of mulch to 3 shovels of dirt. Okay, blend all that together, and that's what you're going to use to backfill. If you had a bunch of debris, a rock or something, you could cheat that up to about 50-50. After that, it's too heavy. It gets too wet. Well, the reason we're adding mulch in there is so that we can attract worms, the beneficials. So all of our plants, this is kind of an insider tip, we inject mycorrhizal colonies through the water, so every plant has mycorrhizals in it. These are beneficial. How do you describe mycorrhizal colonies? These are the beneficial things that live in the soil that attach themselves to the root that make the roots grow bigger, stronger, better, healthier. They fill out faster. You wonder why our plants grow better? Well, there's some insider tips why we do it. You don't see it, but that's why. But they feed off the organics. But if you're adding some mulch in there with that, all of a sudden you get this thing happening and your soil gets activated so they start growing. And it keeps that soil from compacting right back down. So you dug it out and you think, oh, I fluffed it back up. But it's heavy clay soil. As soon as you water it, it goes right back down to this brick form. It helps keep it lightweight. If you're out towards Granite Mountain, you've got that granity, crushed granite soil. It's real lightweight. That top layer, top 18, 24 inches is sand, and then it's like hard pan. There it helps the sand to retain moisture. So no matter what kind of soil you got, it helps you. So about 25, 50% mulch. Backfill around that. Give it a handful of this. This is, again, a good food for new plants. And then I'll water it in with Root and Grow. And I think the team gave me some of that. Here. Root and Grow. This is a compost tea we make. We actually brew our own compost tea. It kind of looks like fish emulsion, only without all the stink. The gross fish emulsion's disgusting. This is not. And so, but you'll water this in, the plants just go, whoa. This helps with transplant shock. And so these plants are going to freak out when you put them in the ground. It's like open heart surgery and brain surgery at the same time. They are not happy. And so they got to adjust, and this helps them to adjust. So I'll do this every 2 weeks until I see the plant going, oh, it's growing. Oh, I'm such a good gardener. Oh, look at this plant. It's great. It won't need this anymore. Then the food is taking over. That's how you do it. Mulch, food, Root and Grow. Same depth, same width, and you'll have that handout in your inbox here at the end of the day. It'll be in the book, the privacy book. I put a separate page just so you put a privacy screen and you want it to fill in fast, not slow. That'll help you kind of get things going. Great question. With that, I got to let you go. We're now in 12 minutes in. The seats are getting hard. I will hang out and answer any questions you want. Take a look at the plants. Take your time. I'm just here for you today. After we get done, I'll show you one thing I brought. You guys, mainly for the guys out there. Anyone that likes power tools. I know some of you gals are hardcore power tool gals. This is my new toy. I have to go through and turn it on. Power pruners. You can nip off the end of your finger in a heartbeat, but it's just kind of like, it's the greatest thing ever. I had to prune, we go through every summer and summer prune shape. We want the trees mainly to grow in the right shape. So there's an art to making a plant that just naturally grows and looks pretty. And so I go through and personally hand prune all these, and my hand is just killing me. By the time you get done pruning 1,000 trees, all day long, just like crazy. And it goes through like an inch. It'll go through don't put your finger in there, but it'll go through that much. Even oak trees, it goes right through. It's pretty awesome. I know it is not OSHA approved. I would never give this to an employee, but it really makes my life easier. But I'm just so proud of this little tool. It made my life so much easier. It's a couple $100 from China, of all places. So anyway, there you go. We're done. I'll let you guys clap, and then I'll let you all go. Thanks for coming. Get rid of this thing.
How does that go? Yeah.
In the summer, so
Oh, so they die?
it'll die back to the ground.